Hope everybody's doing okay. This is part 24 to Slaves to Satan. Sorry that I haven't been uploading at a very good pace. I've been very ill again. The devil or some high ranking entity has been doing everything in its power to try to keep me sick, but thank Jesus Christ, I'm feeling better and hopefully it stays this way. So part 24, this is about Rudolph Steiner. You don't really hear about him much anymore. At one point, he was a very big name in the occult world. He had his own movement that we're going to get into called anthroposophy. And I want to say that it's a shame that these people that I have to admit, to an extent, had very good spiritual ideas, but it's unfortunate that they take it the complete wrong direction. But let's get started. So he was an Australian New Ager and one of the more unique New Agers at that. But among many other things, he was a philosopher, a social reformer, an architect, an occultist, an esoterist. Now, before I go any further, I want to point out the difference that an occultist does mean that you're practicing things that are forbidden in the Holy Bible. An esoterist, while it usually does mean that you're involved in things that go against Christianity and the Word of God, it does not necessarily mean that. And just the word occult does not mean evil, but occultist does. And esoteric just means that it's not meant for the masses to know. And a lot of very good things are esoteric as well, like the Book of Enoch, the Apocrypha, the so-called pseudepigrapha books, where most of them should be in the Bible anyways. That's considered esoteric, and some people would even consider them occult just because they're hidden, but they're still holy because people have made these words seem like taboo. Like they've hijacked a lot of these words. Like the main two words is occult and esoteric. Look at the definition. Neither of them mean satanic. Occultist, that is bad, but just the word occult is not evil in itself. It is usually associated with evil, but it is not. He was a clairvoyant. So he says. He was a literary critic. He was an author. He had what he called the philosophy of freedom. And what he's most known for is he's the creator of a system called an anthroposophy. And the definition is pretty, well, it's not that complicated. Um, the whole doctrine of it is a lot to it, but like how just think about anthropology, how that's the study of humans and the civilization, how people think, how people act. So in itself, anthroposophy was more the study of the soul, the spirit, things like that. So it's not that it had to be bad, but of course he turned it into that. He was a German idealist. And of course, here we go with this Christian Gnosticism. And I call it that just because that's the official name. But Gnosticism is anything but Christian. One of the core beliefs of Gnosticism is that the serpent in the garden was actually the good person, and that God was the bad person. It completely and it does what you call a inverted hermeneutics. It inverts the whole Old Testament, throws it upside down, and it makes everything bad look good and everything good look bad. It's ridiculous. And you'd also know neo-Gnosticism, which when it comes to religion, neo means teaching later. So basic Gnosticism would be what was said to be taught by Simon the Sorcerer. Then neo Gnosticism would be modern Gnosticism, which obviously was changed a little bit. And here we go with this damn curse of theosophy, because, like I say, all these people are either disciples and influenced by Aleister Crowley or Helena Blavatsky, one of the two. Like, I tell people that the last 250 years are the most important years in history, and the two people that saved it, unfortunately, was Helena Blavatsky and Aleister Crowley. Obviously, there was other people that played their parts, but those were the two main figures. And somebody that's not a Christian, somebody that's not saved, somebody that hasn't studied history, alternative history, they'll look at you like you're stupid when you say that, and they'll throw out a name that is pretty insignificant. But when you really study and realize that everything's connected back to them, most people would agree. And while his teachings were labeled as pseudoscience and pseudo history, I do want to say I'll I'll shoot him some bail here, and say that most science that people think is true is actually a lie. Most science and the history too. Most science and history that you're taught in school and colleges. I don't care if you go to Harvard, Yale, or any of the other top dollar colleges. When it comes to anything important that can make spirituality, the Bible, religion, the occult, Jesus Christ, Yahweh seems true, they're gonna come up with a lie. Like in school and college, most people that they put up on a pedestal, at best, and I mean this in a kind of a joking way, but even though that's bad, at best they're a Mason. They're either Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Satanists, Theosophists, members of the Golden Dawn, worshippers of Baphomet, and a bunch of other junk. But the real science is outside of the schools. The real history is outside of the schools. And if anybody would be like, if anybody would like to be taught 101 the proper way, I'm willing to teach any topic for free. I'm not one of these Christians that just talks about all this good they want to do, and then 40 years goes by and they're on their deathbed and nothing ever gets done. I'm 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 willing to put my money where my mouth is. If somebody wants taught or guided, I'm willing to help you for free. And and like I said, some things this guy was into was not bad, like spiritual science. Um, if if that was looked at in the right way, I think that's wonderful. And a lot of these people, like one of the better examples was Gerald Gardner. I think was like part 9 or 10, maybe 11, one of my longest videos to the Slave of Satan series. Um, and he created Gardnerian Wicca and Wicca in general, he was all over the place with his belief system. And that's something you'll see with these people. And that's because it's confusing. Because the devil is. That's what the devil. That's one of the devil's favorite things is confusing. That's one of the reasons why the monks are screwed up. And he started the Waldorf education system because Rudolph Steiner actually has many schools open around the world that he started. If I had um, if I had a very large amount of money, I would open up I would open up schools to where you could sign up, pick what subject you want to learn from hundreds of topics, and I would love to teach it for free. Um, that I want to depending on what part of the world you live in, it might not really be like this for you, but I would be willing to travel, spend my own money, um, uh, all my own time for free just to teach something or give a message, but um, nobody even wants as spiritual education or teaching for free when other people in other countries will be dying to have any type of teaching in the Bible, spirituality, prayer, anything. He was into biodynamic agriculture, which is not a bad thing. He had different opinions of agriculture, but a lot of it was right. Now, anthroposophic medicine. And that's pretty similar to what nowadays they call alternative medicine, except that it adds a little bit more spirituality to it, and not the Asian spirituality and Indian spirituality that most alternative medicine is based off of. And alternative medicine is actually a very big gateway into the demonic realm. Like, for example, no one really knows this, but acupuncture is an occultic Chinese um, practice. Like, all the areas where they stick the needles in you, um, that's for occult reasons because they do not even need to stick the needles in you to have the same effect. All they have to do is push a certain way, and but the reason they do the needles is because they believe. A lot of people know this. They believe in the she, the what is like the spiritual power, which they call it different places in different nations. Some people call it prana, she, ki, ka, ba. And the name doesn't really matter, but in Asia they believe in meridian paths, and they believe that the acupuncture opens up meridian paths in the body. At some point, I'll start talking about alternative medicine, but there's a lot here about to get to continue with. He was into ethical individualism, which unfortunately you can you can listen to do without. Well, unfortunately, um, he was into epistemology. He, um, he was into hagiography. His father was a gamekeeper. Um, and he was obviously a very smart person. He studied at the Vienna Institute of Technology, enrolled in mathematics, physics, chemistry, um, botany, zoology, mineralogy, literature, philosophy, um, and he started editing, which I believe was the newsletter, the um, called Natural Science. He became the editor, which for his age was a very big opportunity and rare opportunity. Not that paid good, but it's an example, and he was smart and talented. Now, um, now we'll get into the more important stuff. I like just to give kind of like a short biography of these people's lives to, because I don't like just dehumanize these people. So I would say this was probably the beginning of when things went downhill, and usually things do go downhill at a young age, and sometimes people don't recover. At the age of 9 years old, he saw a spirit of who claimed to be his dead aunt. And a lot of times when people see something like this, it changes them forever, and normally in a bad way. And I've made videos about this in separate videos from Slaves of Satan, but I'll reiterate this again because this is a message that you cannot say enough. As depending on what people think ghosts are, ghosts as people know it do not exist. There is demons, but the dead relatives, once you die, unless if you do one of these horrible things to possibly see death, then you go straight to one place or the other. But even the people that I believe have seated death, you still do not become just a lingering spirit. Those are all evil spirits masquerading as something, and even if it's appears in a form that you can touch, then you're dealing with something even worse. That is a fallen angel, and that's pretty much like the other than Satan, that's like the top tier, the worst thing you can be dealing with. Like I've heard stories of people through magic having physical sex with their dead husband, and they had sex with a fallen angel or an ascended master or a Mahatma and didn't know it. But just stay away from that. And same thing with going to the cemetery and going to your dead relative's tombstone and talking to the tombstone. That is a open door to a relative, to inviting a spirit into your life. People think it's innocent, like going to example your dad's gravesite and saying, "Dad, I miss you so much. I was like to talk to you again. I hope I know you can see me." And just kept going on and on. That's an open door for a demon to masquerade as a dead relative. Do not do it. He at the age of 15, he said he gained complete understanding of time, and that's how he gained his powers of clairvoyance. That clairvoyance is being able to hear things um from a obviously an area where you shouldn't be able to hear or very far away, and clairaudience is where you can see. And for some reason, clairaudience is a much rarer ability, but obviously neither are permitted by God unless if God showed you a vision. He was a positivist, and I made a whole video about this person because, which I did not plan to, but the name just kept popping up when I was researching who these people were influenced by, and once again we see Friedrich Nietzsche, um, who was just a very hateful person. Aleister Crowley called him a prophet of Thelema. Um, he would just all about stepping over other people to get what you want in life, all about um just believing like the poor or the weak were were just were just pathetic and didn't mean anything. Just a very hateful person. He got then later he got a doctorate in philosophy. Um, he was involved with the University of Rostock, and he had an offer from Elizabeth Nietzsche to organize the Nietzsche Archive, which, since Friedrich Nietzsche, got a very large following, they organized an archive of all of his writings and I guess memorabilia and stuff like that. And if you've been watching my past videos of this series, you have probably noticed that Nietzsche has came up over and over again. And he was very um, Rudolph Steiner was very big into the idea of the Ubermensch, which was another thing that was made by Friedrich Nietzsche, which is how we get Superman, because originally Superman was a very bad idea. Instead of being, well, the modern Superman is very unholy too. People just don't really see it. Eventually, I'll start explaining all the superheroes too. That would be a good idea. I have so many ideas I don't even know where to start. Um, Crowley was into the idea of the Ubermensch. Hitler was into the idea of the Ubermensch. Blavatsky wrote about the Ubermensch. And like I said, he was a member of the Theosophical Society. At one point, he was the head of the German section. But he eventually got into an argument with the leader at the time, Annie Besant, because he did not agree with who this little boy that C claimed was the Messiah. He disagreed, and then he got um, uh, exiled from the cult. Then he started the Anthroposophical Society. He was in eurythmy and it was anthroposophic medicine. Then, of course, we get into the meditative training, and by that, um, uh, I mean transcendental meditation. That's something that you'll see that all these people are into as well. And transcendental meditation is instead of focusing on something, which is like biblical meditation or just basic meditation. Transcendental is where you completely empty your mind and you think about absolutely nothing. And the reason for this is because while your mind is 100% empty, the spirits is able to come in. That's how people get in contact with spirits, because emptying your mind leaves you very vulnerable. And that's why people do yoga, because something that every black magician does is yoga. And I've done a full video on this about how yoga is demonic, but I still touch on it when need be, because like even I live in a town that I think it only has around 50,000 people, so it's a mid-sized town. And I think there's like 15 yoga studios around here. And if any of them actually teach you the transcendental part, I don't know. But certain poses, well, all the poses in yoga is to honor these specific demonic Hindu gods. And and that's why you cannot separate the yoga from the religion, because even if you don't do the transcendental meditation part, you're still doing poses honoring Kali, Krishna, Shiva, and all their 330 million gods that they claim exist. Because because Hindu is a pantheistic religion. He studied George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, and eventually I might go back a little further and do a Slaves of Satan episode on him. Now, now people don't recognize the name, but a lot of people that study the same type of stuff that I do, especially with the societies and Freemasonry and people that understand the Scottish Rites motto, Ordo ab Chao, they'll be familiar with what is known as the Hegelian dialect, which is to start a global or nationwide problem, then give the people a solution and make it seem like you was the ones that saved everybody. Which almost every secret society that is into the government goes by the Hegelian dialect, but specifically the Illuminati and Masonry. And he taught karma, and karma is a lot of Christians believe in this karma system, but it's not biblical, it's not Christian. People pay for their sins in the next life. People that believe in reincarnation, they teach the karma system. And also, karma is similar to what Wicca teaches, which is the rule, which is called the rule of three, meaning that whatever they do, good, neutral, bad, evil, righteous, will charity, um, greed will come back on them times three. But the modern karma system teaches that, oh, if I donate this $80, money will come back to me double whenever I need it. Or, oh, I better not lie to this person because I'll get a flat tire next week and be late for work and lose my job. That's not how it works. Sometimes we do get punished, sometimes we get rewarded, but the true doctrine and the Christian doctrine is that we pay for our sins in the afterlife. And I'm not saying that God does not punish us, because I'm a prime example of what could have possibly been an example of God's judgment. But karma is not a Christian doctrine. He was into organic farming, and I'm not going to say he predicted AI, but he did make three very important predictions back, I think I want to say 1918, somewhere around that time frame, that he said would pretty much despiritualize people and calcify the pineal gland. And if you're a first time watcher, yes, I am a complete believer in the pineal gland, and I believe in Christian metaphysics. That's another word that's been hijacked um by the demonic brotherhood. Metaphysics just means, well, meta means beyond, physics means what's possible. Metaphysics just means beyond the realm of physical possibilities. And if you're gonna say metaphysics is evil, then that's like somebody claiming the resurrection of Christ um is um is not positive, or the the virgin birth is not positive, because technically that would fall into the category of metaphysics. Um, so the pineal gland being used as the key to the spiritual realm, and for me, that's what really has made change happen in my life. And yes, that's considered metaphysics, and I know the opinions are negative, and I honestly don't care. But anyways, he said that he said that what that the three things that would despiritualize people was hyper rationalism, which is just like I said, not believing in something unless it's possible. That would decalcify the pineal gland. He said that the next problem would be the big cities and people getting used to the city life, that would draw people further away from spirituality and calcify the pineal gland. And it's worth mentioning that in the Bible, typically the wicked people lived in the countryside or small towns, and the wicked lived in big cities like Tyre, the evil city full of masons, where Hiram Abiff was from. And then maybe before I get to the third thing, and whenever I go to the city, which I have to do for certain reasons, usually three or four times a month, I notice that I feel different, especially the last time I went to Washington D.C. It's just a metropolis of pagan evil down there. But anyways, the third thing he said, I can't remember exactly what it called it right off the bat, but I think it was like something Luciferian, which was basically not being able to stop and get into a spiritual atmosphere. Oh yeah, Luciferian stimulation, which he would be probably turning over in his grave if he saw everybody just constantly fixated on their phones. That's sucking the spiritual life away from everybody. Go take a walk around. Well, you just don't see anybody at the mall no more. Go take a walk around Walmart and start looking in people's eyes. You'll notice almost everybody around, their eyes are pitch black. They don't talk. They stare down. They look at their phones. They look like they're just like a lifeless a cyborg or android or artificial humanoid walking around. It's terrible and sad. So that's why I say it's unfortunate that this guy was into evil, because he had a lot of good ideas. He was a private tutor. He designed the first and second Goetheum, Goetheum, which is, I'll put the picture up. It's a pretty impressive building as far as um, architect. He had I believe it was a painting called The Representation of Humanity Lucifer, which is just kind of an eerie painting. And somebody else um, um, uh, pointed this out in a older documentary by Chris Everward. That he did many documentaries, but this one I believe is called Spirit World 1. Spirit World 2 is better, but he pointed out that the picture of 9/11 that looks like a demon in the smoke that Rudolph Steiner, one of his sculptures, looked almost identical to the what looks like a demon in the smoke from the building collapsing. If I can find it, I'll post it. And now we'll get into the darker part, I guess. He was the lead of the Mystica Eterna Masonic Lodge of the Order of Memphis and Mitrium, which I've spoken on this before. I have a separate video about it, but that one goes up to 99 degrees. Very few people know that it exists. I don't know why no one talks about it. It's not like you have to be an insider to know about Memphis and Mitchell Masonry. And he was the leader of the entire lodge at the 95th degree. And while it has 99 and 95 is when you can be, I believe that's the necessary number to become a leader of the lodge. Because in Masonry, you can be the leader of a lodge without being that degree, because sometimes they won't even have anybody in that district or region that's higher than a certain degree. He was a member of the OTO, but he had some type of issue with Theodore Rotz, who I made a whole video about, with a very who was a very disturbing person. And the OTO is the Ordo Templi Orientis, which was um it was made and started with the intention to be a direct revival of the Bavarian Illuminati. But then eventually Aleister Crowley became the leader of it, and then he shredded its Masonic roots. And and then it became pretty much a demonic sex cult. And the current leader is a man named William Breeze. And Rudolph Steiner was also a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Freemason. Because see, you can get into the Memphis and Mitrium Masonry without getting to the 33rd degree, because their system is completely different. And becoming a 33rd degree Scottish Rite Mason is harder than becoming a 95th degree Memphis and Mitrium Mason. So they must have really saw something special in him. And when I say special, I do not mean in a good way. Because usually whoever gets the 33rd degree is bad news. He started something else called the School of Spiritual Science and and Anthroposophical Society. Like I said, Then he also taught sex magic at the OTO. He specifically taught Kama Sutra, which is a Hindu um, type of sex ritual. And he also taught the perfume garden, which is same thing, another type of sex ritual. He had a weird interest in the intermaxillary bone, which is kind of a weird thing to be interested in. He wrote a magazine. I don't think he created it, but he was in charge of writing a decent amount of it. A magazine called Lucifer Gnosis, and Gnosis is Greek for knowledge. That's also how Gnosticism comes about. And while I wasn't raised Catholic, he was involved in some Catholic things. And I think I said this on one of my last videos. A gigantic amount of these people that I cover, and occultists, masons, people that are into Satan, were raised Catholic. And I don't really care if I get criticized for this. Catholicism is hidden Satanism. I would even say the Roman Catholic Church is worse than Anton LaVey's Church of Satan. Because at least Anton LaVey was, well, he wasn't completely honest because he did believe in a real devil. But at least they didn't trick you thinking you was worshiping Christ. The inner core of the Catholic Church is unimaginably demonic. That's why Jesus said, look at the fruit that people bear. I know I'm paraphrasing, but the Bible always says, look at the fruit. And the fruit for the Catholic Church is horrible. Now, this is when this is when you can tell something is wrong and not what people think it is. He claimed that he had a life-changing encounter with Jesus Christ when he was 38 in 1899. And that's a common trend with these people. Like Alice Bailey, for example. She claimed to see Jesus Christ when she was 15, and then she wrote some of the most evil books you can imagine, like The Externalization of the Hierarchy. Right, has a 10-step plan to end Christianity, talks about the New World Order, says that the Ascended Masters were coming in 2025. Very anti-Christ person, a theosophist, because they're seeing a counterfeit version of Jesus Christ. And all these pictures don't help, because apparently there was real paintings of Jesus Christ, but the satanic Roman Catholic Church burned them and got rid of all of them by the time of the 6th century. So people see these pictures and it's completely um imprinted in their mind of what Jesus Christ will look like. So when they see one of these ascended masters or something from the Astar Command that's claiming to be Christ, they're probably gonna believe it. Unfortunately, like like they taught that the Astar Command teaches that Sananda is the Christ, and it's It looks very similar to what people see. That's why I personally would say, don't have a picture of what you believe in Jesus hanging up in your home, because I would, I'm almost positive it's a deception. He was into esoteric cosmology, which could be bad or good, because cosmology is how the world is made, not just Earth, but above us too. And I made this clear multiple times. It's not one of the main things I focus on, but I'm pretty educated in the subject. I believe in biblical cosmology, and biblical cosmology is a flat Earth, a flat stationary Earth with four corners and a dome that is the firmament. And then above the firmament is another layer of water, or possibly another firmament, then after that, heaven. And the firmament is about 73 miles away from us, and then right after that is shortly is heaven. Like, see, there's many reasons that they made up this fake story about the Earth being a globe and outer space and the universe and all that. Like, the universe is kind of new age term, anyways. There's the cosmos, which is basically the in between area of of the sky and heaven. When you realize that heaven and God is that close to us, it makes if you feel more personal with God. Like, when I was younger, I didn't really have an opinion on it, because I didn't really think it really mattered either way. But then I realized it does matter, because the globe, the round Earth, it promotes atheism, and it makes you feel disconnected from God more. And he also believed in two different forms of Jesus. So I'm assuming that he's one of these people like the high ranking Mormons that believe that Jesus Christ and Satan were twin brothers or something. I don't know. People had huge amounts of criticisms with about this guy's um, congregation. He was always accused of being a cult leader. They said with his New Age mixed with um, uh, occult beliefs mixed with Gnosticism, which I could probably agree with. The idea of anthroposophy doesn't really seem to be the problem. It's what he made it out to be. Apparently, he believed the second coming was pretty much like an etheric realm. So, about 150 to 200 years ago, and before that, people talked about the ether or the aether. I think it depended where you lived and who was talking about it and what era. But it was basically the acknowledging the spirit world around us with the ether or aether is true, that there is the spirit realm known as the second heaven, and not to get it confused with the 10 layers of heaven that Enoch 2 talks about. But the second heaven in the Bible is the spirit realm. He basically believed the second coming was when Jesus would come to the ethereal realm. I don't know what he thought would happen, if that was even true, which it's not. That was made up. And other people made the claim that anthroposophy is Christian Rosicrucianism, which I could agree with, because Rosicrucianism, it blends occultism in with the Bible. It blends magic in with the Bible. It even blends Lucifer in with the Bible. And see, the occult doctrine is that, or well, I sorry, I just say occult because people resonate with it better. But the satanic occult doctrine is that Satan or the devil is bad, but then then Lucifer, they believe that's a different entity because it means light bearer. So that when it's not like a Christian where they think evil, they to them that's still good. They believe that the devil and Lucifer are different entities. So that's why Rosicrucianism teaches that. And he was also big into pushing the age of Aquarius, which it just what they made up because the age of Horus sounded too evil, because Aleister Crowley claimed that the age of Horus, or well, he said the Aeon of Horus, which just means AIDS, Greek for AIDS, Aeon, was what was coming next. But mostly New Agers adopted the term Age of Aquarius because it sounded better. Like that's what that song. There's a song called Age of Aquarius that I've heard other people bring up because they were new age stuff back then. But the Age of Aquarius is just kind of just putting sugar and rainbows over the demonic Age of Horus, and that's about all. Hopefully, I can edit this fairly quick and get it out within the next 24 hours and start pushing these videos out faster again. God bless you all.